Just some quick errata that I need to clear up. The radio I was talking about is not the DX350. The DX350 was that one with the 9-position switch and the analog tuning. The digital one, which I have now, is the DX396. Both of which I think have been discontinued. I'm not sure. I'll go to the website later and see if they still sell it, or if they sell any shortwave whatsoever. It's been a long time since I've actually been inside a Radio Shack looking for equipment like that. That's about it for that, so let's get on with the video. So part 2, what to expect when you begin your shortwave hobby. Well, you're going to be receiving a lot of static. Shortwave stations are extremely distant, most of them. So you're going to be doing a lot of what is called DXing. DXing basically means distant radio, or DX. The stations that you're going to be picking up are going to be thousands, if not tens of thousands of miles away. So that's the big thing. You got to be able to cope with the static. One of the things that generates a lot of this static, the U.S. power grid is bereft of harmonic distortion. What harmonic distortion is, if you think about electrical power is alternating current. It has a signal on a scope like this. It's plus, minus, plus, minus. It's a nice, clean sine wave. Now, what harmonic distortion is, there's a lot of devices that use this that are electronic, that their power supplies aren't all that great. And these power supplies, instead of getting this clean plus, minus, you get this, you get these little spikes and RF and all this other garbage on the signal. What that does, because of the frequency range that shortwave is, that stuff is going to be picked up by your radio. So one of the things you got to do when you're using shortwave is eliminate things that can generate that. The worst culprit is fluorescent lighting, these little CF bulbs. Every one of these little CF bulbs you buy at the store, they have a ballast in them, which is basically a tiny little high frequency inverter that pushes that tube. It steps the voltage up, maybe from 120 volts to a couple of thousand volts, and it puts it through that tube. But in doing that, it's basically a very tiny transmitter. And that voltage that's going through that tube is basically a spark gap. So, it's going to interfere to no end with your radios. So eliminate those. Turn all those off when you start using shortwave if you're going to be tuning a distant station. Computers. Anything with a computer in it these days. Microwaves, televisions, computers, even refrigerators and washing machines. Now, why do you need a computer in a washing machine or a refrigerator? They all use what's called a switching power supply. The switching power supply is basically a workaround to avoid the high cost of a transformer, which produces a superior power signature. Switching transformers use solid-state devices that are very similar to regulators that switch in and out at very, very high frequencies. And they also contribute to the interference on your power lines. I mean, it's gotten so bad here in the U.S. that you even walk within 20 feet, oh heck, even 100 feet of even a main power line. We have a right-of-way through this property, and there's a line going across. And all this harmonic distortion, it's like having a giant radio transmitter in your yard, it's just, and anyway, getting beyond that, we're at 5 minutes. That's the big thing, is interference. So anything you get with your radio, you get one with a automatic noise limiter would be one thing. Those are worth their weight in gold when you're doing HF. And a tone control, because the static is going to be heck on your ears. Tone control, you can cut all the highs off of it, and you don't have that going in your ears. And get yourself a good set of headphones. Headphones, you can hear a lot of things over headphones that you would even completely miss just trying to tune over a speaker. Plus, it gives your family some relief, because I'm sure they don't want to hear static all the time while you're hunting stations. So, those are the big things. And that's pretty much that for that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to tell you real quick, but that's the most basic stuff. If you're just going to get a very basic radio, you may find that your hobbies expand, and you may be wanting to upgrade your equipment. Some really nice upgrades, if you can afford them. Radio equipment is ridiculously overpriced, especially when it starts shifting over into the ham-related stuff, which shortwave is kind of a gray area. And it's kind of sad that these little consumer-grade receivers have started fading out. You don't see them anymore, hardly. It gave people a really easy leg into it, which seems to be falling by the wayside. Now, pretty much to get shortwave equipment, you have to really look, because sometimes all you can find is ham stuff. And man, when they stamp the word ham on anything, like a little radio like this, I could put the word amateur radio receiver on it. And I've just upped the price by about $300 to $500 for something I could pay $69 for at a Radio Shack. I want to listen to shortwave. I'm not interested in ham radio. You know, give me a basic receiver. But that's another rant, and I'll get on with that later. The neatest features that you'll probably want real fast: sideband, single sideband. Get a radio that can tune sideband. You know, they do make some shortwave radios with a BFO and an adjustment so that you can tune in the sideband stuff, because a lot of stuff is going to sideband now. And you'll learn about sideband as you play with shortwave. I'm not going to get too far into it now. That's one good thing. A radio with an AUX out or a line out. So if you have some other equipment that you want to hook to it, it can take the audio signal that's coming out, and for instance, you may want to get a PSK decoder. It can use the AUX out, and it can give you that text just from the sound that's coming out of your radio. You can actually sit an iPod or iPad near a speaker of one of these things with the appropriate app, and it'll do PSK. But having that line out eliminates room noise. You're not using a mic. So that would be the big thing. That's about it. That's pretty much the basics. You're going to find a lot of stations in a lot of languages you don't understand. All the stations, or at least most of them, identify where they're transmitting at least once an hour, at the very least once an hour. So you'll be able to, even in other languages, it's pretty easy to figure out what they're saying when they identify their station. Get yourself a radio frequency database, a shortwave database, put it in your iPad, your iPod, or your PC, so that when you pick these stations up and log them, you can go back later when the radio is off and you can find out where it was coming from, because it's a where and when thing. It's frequency and time. They don't always transmit 24 hours a day. They're on at specific times at specific frequencies for certain durations. And a lot of the time they'll tell you when their next transmission is going to be and what frequency. So it's almost like the World War II thing. Tune into blah 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 kilohertz at 0600 hours UTC or something like that. So there's a little bit of know-how involved in it, but not anything that anybody can, not anything that nobody can digest, you know. It's just common sense stuff. Once you figure it out, it's easy. Sorry about that, I had to pause. Somebody keeps driving past my house very slowly, and I don't know who they are. But anyway, we're running out of time on this video, so I'll go into the third one. The third video, I'm going to get into some of the undesirable things, but I'm also going to talk about some of the neater things. So, catch you then.